So I'm just gonna press.
Perfect.
Um, so where would you like to start? Given what you just shared about the NGO part, and um, you say you're not competitive, you just want to take 1% of the market. Well, if I were in the advertising market, I would say of course you're competitive. I don't care whether you want to make profits or not. You're going to take away market from me, so yes, you're competitive.
No, no, no,
Um,
absolutely. That's true. But the thing is, like, since I started thinking, first of all, I started thinking to turn this from a social business to an NGO. So this way, for me, it's also a way, it brings also, fiscal advantages and like all this kind of part. And also, it's also for the trust because I also need a lot the consumer support.
mhm,
So basically, what I'm thinking about, I'm not a threat. It's of course, I'm not a threat for one single player in the market, which
mhm,
is,
mhm,
let's say, the bad guy, which is the
mhm,
agency, the media agency, which is the one that is centering basically all the everything in terms of budgets, in terms of operations, in terms of learning as well. That's why brands are so dependent to media agencies because they have the learnings and they don't share it with the client, even if it's something that the client pays for. But in order to not mess up, basically, because with this new way to have a fundraising strategy and let's say a business a venture that actually for the impact, the mix, of course, is going to help me to open even more doors in terms of donations, for example, because I can go to corporate directly to ask for the social part, etc., for a donation for supporting the mission. But at the same time, I also provide a service which is not touching basically their media budgets. Whose interest is touching this
mhm,
project? Of course, the intermediary, the
mhm,
one that
mhm,
the media agencies, of course. So in this way, of course, I'm finding right now the let's say the right solution to unlock also this part because I don't want to be seen as an agency, but at the same time, I need, of course, the agencies to work with me. And talking about the 1%, let's say it's something that today they declare to give up to 5% in towards impact, towards reducing carbon footprint, all this kind of things.
mhm,
So I realized that asking for 1% of that, but of course, the thing is like it's only greenwashing because they never give this kind of money. So of course, the incentive I'm trying to find for media agencies, it's something that it's gonna be covered also by the publishers, since they already have in place for some impressions, some numbers, basically already deals with the media agencies where they will give back to the agency what they invest. So the thing is like I'm just gonna be like a service platform for them, but keeping the same basically interest between the two parties without me, to basically to disrupt this kind of interest between the parties. And since we're talking about actually, advertising in 1% of advertising in Spain. We're talking about I think like 4 million or something. So we're not talking about crazy money, but for impact, 4 million are quite a number.
mhm,
And now also I'm trying to realize a little bit more in the terms of impact which I want to give in terms of meaning. And what I thought, actually, it's more like it's towards actually conservation and preservation of
mhm,
the land,
mhm,
because based on let's say my last studies, it's a way that actually can combine many different activities inside of, because if I'm a owner of the land, I can help to connect two lands to forest, for example. I can plant trees. I can help. I can promote ecotourism, and I can be, like active on the rural society also for the farmers, etc. In that land. So I'm opening basically like a topic for my NGO that is actually more into like as again the preservation where actually all the everybody in the chain, in the value chain, even like the ad industry, will be able, of course, to measure and to understand the impact that they are creating. Because now I need to select basically, transparent providers that can help me to give this traceability. And one of them I found it's called Preserva Land. I don't know if
Hmm.
you ever heard about them.
No.
Preservaland, it's a provider that actually is basically turning land. It tokens the lands
Hmm.
and creates digital assets basically. So
Okay.
the land correspond to an NFT or whatever else
Hmm.
that has is unique, of course, and has a description, etc. And the good part is also you can benefit as part of the land, part of the ownership of this land. You can also benefit to the not to the revenues of the land, but if you start, for example, ecotourism, you as a landlord as well, you can gain, of course, a little bit this part of the business, let's say, that maybe you can transform in other donation, you can transform in carbon credits or anything else. I'm trying, to steer clear from carbon credits because
Hmm.
now everything is the boat where everybody jumps. But this is also something that has been is the solution of the economist, is not the solution of the scientist. And this is for me the biggest difference because the scientists
That's a
they
good
are
point.
giving you solutions. It's clear what you need to do basically for the earth, and the economist, which is of course focus on the profits, focus on growing, etc., is saying okay, carbon yeah,
Credits. Hmm.
carbon credits is the solution, to fight the climate
Hmm.
change, the climate crisis, etc. Which is another way to say, it's super short term solution. It doesn't really fix anything for the planet.
No, it doesn't. Yeah.
So these are like
Okay.
my last, let's
The
say,
update.
updates exactly.
Cool. Cool.
And actually I found a lot of interesting inputs also, like from first from the documents you share with me, and
Hmm.
at the same time in particular I found something really interesting that I would love to combine in this mission, let's say, that is the motherland that you I don't know
Hmm.
if you are one of the investors, if you just promote it. I don't know what's your role
No,
into
I'm one of the initiators, but yeah,
one
go
of the
ahead. Go ahead.
founders.
Go ahead. Hmm.
Exactly. So because I think with a little bit more, let's say, understanding about this, and this is particular a topic really that it's really important for my business partner Mayra,
Hmm.
that she's Brazilian, and she always been very involved also in this kind of activities, in particular for
Hmm.
Brazil, because Brazil
Hmm.
has a many, let's say, different difficulties in terms of also how to understand how to price, the grain, or how to do like
Hmm.
basic stuff. And based on if, for example, we buy a land, this is something that it could match a lot into
Hmm.
this part,
Yeah.
which is impulsing also my last, let's say, vision to
Hmm.
to eradicate the money from the world. And
Hmm. Hmm.
that's basically like something that I got, and also I took some notes about like the papers, and I came up with some questions which I would love to go a little bit through,
Hmm. Yeah.
because Project Miracle is the one that I think it match a lot, honestly, with my values. And and it's something new, something fresh for me. And of course, I'm not an expert on this in this not, it's not like an industry, but this kind of concept for me are totally
Hmm.
new,
Hmm.
are coming up right now for me. So of course, I will need probably more a little bit more of your guidance to understand better. Like at some points, I put some notes. Actually, I wanted to discuss with you.
Well, let's go through your points first. I have a bunch of things that I have on my mind um, around what you just shared about land, and I'm super happy to go into motherland. And but let's first go into the points you've gathered.
Sure,
Um,
absolutely. So basically, I started like like creating some a bit of bullet points, of course,
mhm,
of the in particular. Also, I really focus on the meaning of the words that you put into this paper. And
mhm,
first of all, I would like to understand a little bit, like the strategic vision, for example, of Project Miracle. Like, what's the
mhm,
Project Miracle vision? Like how do you see
mhm,
the initiative, let's say strategically navigating all the complexities, that
mhm,
are like inherent to these heliogenic civilizations.
mhm,
So
mhm, mhm.
that's my first question. Like in
Okay.
terms of strategic vision, like since it's very transformative, the nature of Project Miracle's
Mhm.
vision. Like,
Okay.
how do you see like these initiatives, navigating the complexities?
Okay. So in the very first practical step, we're now setting up a pre-seed fund that will support um, early stage startups in the field of using natural processes to create materials, and materials specific to the building industry, construction industry. That's the first. That's a ramp up for a bigger fund for
This is a company,
scale.
right? This is a profit company, so you make
The
this.
fund, the fund is for profit because there will be and there are we have 3 million committed at the moment. So there are some LPs in there that want to have their money back, of course, but they accept a high risk in that we do something impactful pre-seed. So there's a um, 1 in 100 expectation of return here. It's not it's absolutely manageable. But at the same time, we're partnering with two um, other initiatives. One is Gita, with its efforts to orchestrate around retrofitting of cities. So we have the construction industry there, and the other one is something that is now happening in Israel and Gaza in terms of rebuilding um, destroyed homes, where the German president has asked a friend of mine and given her some money to contribute to the rebuilding. And in there, we will very specifically look at what are the streams of material that still create dependencies or are dependent on the industrial complex and externalization, exploitation, mining, uh, a fossil fuel intense like steel and concrete and all of that. And where can we tap in with heliogenic materials? And then um, we target those startups that will fund through the Project Miracle Fund onto these two platforms. So that's the first tactical step. Um, Strategically, with this step, we want to show that and so what really important point in this is that we while the fund itself needs to return a profit at one point, we are very clear that any investment has to be aligned with the heliogenic principles, and these are mainly two. One is every product needs to be based on natural processes with no negative externalities to nature. And the other is it has to be the foundational IP has to be open and free.
Got it.
And so we only do this, we only invest if a company agrees with those principles, and it's part of the thesis of the fund.
Okay.
Mm. Because, and that is now the long-term strategic understanding, the creation of an open and free foundation of a new materials economy is very similar to the creation of open and free protocols and software elements that made up the internet. So,
Okay.
so the internet, maybe I don't know if there was a version of this in Italy, but in the 80s and also in the 90s, still in France, there was a thing called Minitel. In Germany, it was called BTX. It was a closed system internet. It
Oh,
was centrally controlled and you had a limited amount of services and you could navigate through the television. Um, it was
of course, of course, of
yeah,
course. It's true. Yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah.
that stuff never took off because it was a closed system, right? It wasn't interesting for people to start explore and experiment. But as soon as Berners-Lee put out what the World Wide Web standards on the same infrastructure, right? It was internet before that, but the World Wide Web now was open and free. Now everybody could start experimenting and building and doing stuff. And in combination with the open sourcing of Unix by MIT, the suddenly there was all of the infrastructure open and free for everybody to play.
Of course.
That created the internet as we know it, the digital economy, 15% of global GDP, right? It's that's what created that. And in the long term understanding of what we want to do with Project Miracle, we want to address exactly that point, but in the materials economy, in the physical economy. And ultimately, we believe that there's a limit to what we can do with for-profit money in that. So the funds are only there to prove the point,
Oh, okay.
right? We're not interested in generating returns for us or whatever. They're there to prove the point. And what we're ultimately interested in is finding a country or a few countries that have read Mariana Mazzucato's work and
Okay.
really understood what she's writing in The Lion State. Because she ultimately makes the case that in order to have something like Silicon Valley, which is, of course, as we know, the epicenter of the digital economy, you need to pour a lot of research money into the foundation of that and make that freely available. That's ultimately what she's doing, what she's saying. And she's, that's the first analysis of what made the internet possible. Now imagine you're a country like Norway or Singapore. You have massive sovereign wealth. You want to be relevant in the future. And you know that the future is definitely going to be put on different pillars than the present in terms of materials, in terms of energy, all of that. Now, in in the 1930, 40s, the US put 43 billion US dollars in today's money into the Manhattan Project. Right? Just one project to create the situation because they were scared of Hitler being faster in building the nuclear bomb. And so they decided, okay, we need that's not an option. We need to be faster. And so we are just going to pour a lot of resources into that because otherwise this guy is going to capture the whole world. I would argue we're in a similar situation. And if you look at now again the internet, if you look at all of the technology that went into your iPhone, it's basically military technology that was funded by the US during the phases of World War One and Two and after that, and then went into the tech sector. Now, any other country can do that. And our
Awesome.
goal is to make the case for countries with a lot of wealth to financial capital, that is, not wealth, financial capital, to put a stack of billions into building the open and free foundation for the heliogenetic civilization on a materials perspective. That's that's what the ultimate goal of Project Miracle is. And the way we measure that is by saying that everybody on the planet can build their home with local materials for free because they can grow the entire material stack that they need locally. Everybody. And if that's possible, then Project Miracle is done.
Got it. No, 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 no. Perfect, perfect. No, no, exactly. I mean, that's no, no, that's ambitious, and I really like the point also about the foundation. That's just to prove a point. That's like a real call for the stakeholders, basically interest around this project, and I think it's also very smart because with this action you show also all the inefficiencies and everything that it's something that can be done. Look here, but of course,
Mhm,
there's a we need more and more awareness and support about it. Indeed, actually,
mhm,
how is how's the education playing a role here in
mhm.
Project Miracle?
So yeah, so there's an important aspect in this, not only bringing it to the people,
Hmm.
but also learning what's necessary, what's needed from the people, because it's highly regional, right?
Yeah.
So our rough calculation is that we don't even need 43 billion, we need 13 billion. Um, and part of that money is going to be funneled to roughly 1,000 organizations that have a strong foothold in the countries. So on average, five grassroots, bottom-up type of NGO organizations per country in the world that can are already in touch with the people that are potentially most in need and can inform the engineers and scientists of what is needed, what are the resources. So in one case, you can work with sand. In another case, you have to work with organic material, depending on where you are. So what do you have at your disposal, and what do you need to produce from that? And so having the foothold in both directions, learning from the people, and then bringing it back to the people is not something we want to even try to do with Project Miracle. That's something that people should do that already have the trust, the
Yeah.
understanding, all of that. So that's that's in terms of the implementation and distribution, right? If you if you zoom out further into the whole heliogenic civilization vision, then Project Miracle is focusing completely on the materials. back, right? It's it's only focusing on how do we create a new materials economy. It's not focusing on how do we replace the notion of money with the notion of care, or how do we um, create governance systems that move from politics to agency, right? We don't look into these. And there's a lot of um, education in the original deepest sense of like guiding, allow giving people the environment that allows them to guide themselves through something.
Yeah.
Um, that's needed, right? But that's not something Project Mir touches, but that's something that heliogenesis as an idea encompasses,
Yeah.
right? And then heliogenesis as an idea will highlight all of the beautiful projects in the world that are looking at all of these what we call infrastructures of generosity. All of the people building these kinds of educational paths, of implementation paths, etc. Right? So that's
That's yeah, no, that's the
that's the
role.
big. Hmm.
No, no, and for example, like that you think like what you're saying basically, it's actually exactly what I'm analyzing right now. Like
Hmm.
the community affected by a threat or a climate threat or anything are totally more inclined, for example, to cooperate and like hierarchical governments, corporations, like all these economists, let's say people on
Hmm.
this part. So I really see this. This is also an added value on that because basically you're saying that we learn from the people what is needed basically, and that's
Yeah. Yeah. And
sorry
and
to sum it up for like this. It's just to fix it in my some
no,
our bullet.
but that's exactly how it is. I mean, um, if you look at um, Kate Raworth and donut economy, um, are you familiar with donut economy?
No.
No. So it's a concept by a British economist called Kate Raworth, and it basically says it takes the planetary boundaries and it draws the planetary boundaries around a ring outward. And so if your economy is overusing its environment, it is reflected by a bar in one of these boundaries, like water and chemistry of the air, etc. Um, and so the more you're contributing to the change of air chemistry or water pollution or whatever, the longer your bar is, the more red. Okay. Towards the inside of that ring, it shows dimensions of service to the people,
Mhm.
right? It's services like education or
Yeah,
healthcare, all of these. And if you're not providing, then this is also shown as a red bar.
yeah,
So your optimal goal is to be completely inside of the green ring. That's why it's called the donut economy.
yeah, yeah. Of course, of course.
Yeah. The country probably closest to that in the world currently is Costa Rica. Um, and it's very interesting if you look at GDP,
Mhm.
you grow GDP and you all those dimensions become a little bit better,
Mhm.
or many of those become a little bit better, and then you turn and you start being more exploitative, right? So you increase your GDP, but at the same time you become really bad for the world.
Yeah,
So there's a point where we need to start saying this is enough. And now we're optimizing into that other corner, not into that corner over there. So Kate is working with 70 local city governments
okay.
that want to go into the donut. And he didn't ask a single one of those. They came to her.
Ah, okay.
Um, and so, in other words, we're not wanting to convince anybody of anything.
No, no.
We're going to support the ones that are already convinced and are searching for solutions.
Yeah. No, no,
Yeah.
and how do you like what kind of like a strategy, for example, you employ to ensure like equitable benefits, for example, in this system?
Um, you mean for Miracle or
Yeah, yeah, sorry, for Miracle, for Miracle.
um so the long term, I don't know. I don't
Okay.
know what the best is right now. Um, I think some version of measuring via the donut
Mhm.
probably is helpful. Um, to ensure that you touch on all of the dimensions of um, and it's comparable between places, but
Yeah.
it's also adaptable enough to a place that you can actually um, be appropriate to that place and not have a one size fits all solution that everybody has to accept regardless of whether it fits or not. Um, but but I don't have a
No,
uh,
no.
we don't have a solution for that yet. Um, it's, I think
Yeah,
there's too
actually,
much.
my question is more towards about not really like the strategy, but more like the governance, for example, of this project.
Hmm,
How do you what's the governance of the project?
yeah. So ultimately, it cannot be for profit, right? So while of course the LPs and the funds will have have a return and they will have a profit.
Yeah.
The carry of the funds will be held in a non-profit.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So there will be a management team, and that management team will be incentivized, yes, of course, but um, the bulk of 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 it will go into a non-profit to have some funds also to drive that whole thing. That's number one. Um, Number two is, and um, I'm not 100% clear around this exactly, um, but I think the governance will be modeled after something like forest land use small group process.
Okay.
So there will be a slow moving group in the center, call it the board,
Hmm.
right? And the board is responsible for setting the general direction, the culture, but it has to do that in consensus.
Okay.
So until everybody on that board agrees, um, there's no
Perfect.
consensus. Yeah. Once that board agrees, there are groups that are tasked with certain things to do. And those groups can apply a governance model that is fit for them, fit for the task. Very likely that's a meritocratic hierarchical task force, right?
Yeah.
If you want to get something done, you need to know who's the boss, who's the pilot, right? Who makes the decisions, who's the first to get shot down, but who takes on the responsibility if things go wrong, um, and and who can make fast decisions. Okay, but there's of course always the risk that somebody tries to hijack the system.
No, exactly. That's the risk.
So for that, there's a democratic emergency button.
Hmm.
So So imagine there's the board, and board does its consensus thing, and then there are like five task forces doing things. And now you see that the boss of the task force over there is doing some psychopathic weird shit that he should. So you call the democracy emergency button. You say, I think we should watch this dude. He's doing some psychopathic weird shit. And then that gets voted on by everyone
Depend
in
on
the
like the
organization.
board.
And if the majority says yes, yes, we should have a look at that, then the board, the consensus group, has to come together and make a decision on that and
Okay.
deliberate until they come up with a decision. So that's Forest Landry's small group process. And I I really think that this touches on the most important notions of different governance models, democracy, consensus, and meritocratic hierarchies, um, and combines them in a form that actually is making each one stronger. Um, what I would like to add to this is a form of randomness, so that um, specifically with the board, so that the people that are part of that consensus group are picked randomly from a certain set. And I would love for that set to be basically everybody on the planet. But it's unlikely that we can do this because that's a lot of work, right? So I haven't figured that out yet.
No, 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 but no, no, but because now like the only thing that I it was a little bit it's not like a concern, but I was like if for example since it's a profit company, it's for profit. Of course, the board members they will be probably these funds or this economist that of course they will always try to direct all the actions and everything towards something that is going to make money out of it instead of maybe thinking about other alternatives on making profits. That was the only, let's say, risky thing about the governance that I see of this in this model, because that money make people blind, and they don't
Yeah,
really. But I
yeah.
mean, if there's this kind of system implemented, of course, it's at least it's already a filter. It's not like something that is going to work from day one, maybe, but at least there's like a path to follow.
It is a there's a slightly more complex model that we developed a couple of years ago that would also be applied.
Mhm.
Um, and that model differentiates between two boards. One board is responsible for the mission, and the other board is responsible for the operations.
Okay.
And and then the democratic emergency button is available to everybody, all whole world, everybody. And if if something goes wrong and the majority of the people who vote say, yes, you have to look into this,
Mhm.
then depending on the severity level of the problem, the Mission Protection Board gets more power
Okay.
all the way to being able to overrule the other board. So
Oh,
it's on a sliding scale in terms of its power, and the scale is dependent on the parameters of the problem and the vote.
scenario that it creates. Oh, interesting.
And then, but that's assuming even more resources. So it's unclear whether that's a really feasible path for this right now.
No, but I think this is also the main challenge also for the project. Like setting up a standard governance since we're touching different areas. Like it's not only a company for profit.
Yeah, but we don't have to reinvent the wheel, really. I mean, there's
Oh,
steward ownership. that's already been a proven model.
Yeah.
Um, uh, in the sense that there can be a non-profit that owns a for-profit that um, then protects the for-profit from veering off its path and
Mhm.
becoming too exploitative. That's a model. You can extend on that model, um, but I'd like to not stop there with what we do with Project Miracle and at least experiments with more with new with fresher models. Um, even if it's wrong. Um,
No, of course.
um, uh, and 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 then one really important thing is there needs to be a really non-negotiable termination um, mm, case,
Okay.
and and I and and one that um, preferably is bound to a time frame, because what you ultimately will have is a bunch of people who run this organization. Whether it's for or non-profits doesn't matter, but they're having a good life,
Of course.
and so what happens if they come close to fulfilling their mission? Well, they will do everything in their power not to ever fulfill their mission, because that would mean that they would run out of that
Employment.
interesting, yeah. So ultimately, you need a cutoff date until which you must have achieved your mission, or well, things game over in any event
Yeah.
for that organization. It doesn't mean for the entire effort, right? But for the organization. Now, then you're free to reconfigure fresh. So you're creating basically a market for maybe even a better solution by
Mhm.
somebody else, by a different group, to address the same thing, but in a better way.
Yeah.
And then maybe if the people were really, really good in what they were doing, they might succeed in the next phase, in the next endeavor that they put together.
Yeah.
Maybe not, right?
No,
But
no.
they cannot perpetuate that organization, right? And that's usually a problem in the nonprofit space specifically.
Yeah. And in terms of adoption, for example, do
Mm.
you what are the adoption challenges, basically the main adoption challenges, basically to persuade nations and different cultures to adopt this paradigm shift.
Um, I don't know, but um, my current guess is that it's most likely to be regulations.
Hmm.
I don't think it's people. Um, it's most likely regulations that are protecting the incumbents.
Okay.
Yeah. So just to give you a concrete example of that, there's a design for building houses called Earthship. I
Mhm.
don't know if are you familiar with that design? Yeah. Okay.
All right.
So there's one Earthship in Germany. Another people built it, and it was extremely hard for them to get permissions to build this thing, and they couldn't even get the permissions to use it as a mm, domestic living space. They could only use it as a community center.
Oh, okay.
So, which is absurd, right?
Yes.
Um, in in you look back a couple of 100 years ago, houses were built almost exactly like an Earthship. You know, a lot of thermal mass. Like we have a house in the countryside built in 1787. It has 60 centimeter walls made of clay, right?
Yeah.
Um, so it's been there. But if anybody can just dig a hole in the ground, get some clay and earth and start building their own house, well, then there's a problem for the construction industry, right?
Yeah.
Um, so that's highly protected. So the regulation is the problem.
Okay.
Yeah. And 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 since you were touching on motherland earlier, this is exactly why we decided to go to Africa.
For regulate like more let's say less regulations.
Well, not exactly less regulations, but more pressure.
Yeah, makes sense.
So uh, we will experience the same thing
Yeah.
sooner or later, right? Um, and friends of mine are building a project at the moment. It's called Short Miami.
Mhm.
Um, because I mean the housing market in Miami is an absolute it's ridiculous that there
Yeah.
is even a thing like a housing market in Miami. Um, and they're trying to short it.
Yeah.
Which is a funny way of showing that that place is doomed.
Yeah.
So there will be regulation changes happening in these environments. But with Motherland, um, our founding assumption was that um, humanity will be better off organizing their physical needs in more local environments, so that you're in your physical domain, in your who you connect with physically, where you get your food, where you live, where you go to school, where you contribute physical work is a small local community.
Yeah.
Um, and then in addition to that, there's a global interconnectedness that you also are part of, right? But so self-sufficient, self-reliant communities, right? That's what we saw. And so we went to Africa because from Europe, it's time zone wise, it's easier than Asia or Latin America. And from a pressure perspective, it is under much more pressure than if you went to the German countryside, right? Which needs it just as much, but um, which has regulatory hurdles that are almost possible to overcome. That's why we went to Africa with Motherland.
This is a common topic actually because even like the Preserva Land guys, just to let you know, they are profit company. You know, like just they don't they are not like an NGO, but
Mm,
their mission is specific actually to to sustainable conservation with regulatory compliance. So
mm,
the compliance and regulations, etc., is a topic actually that I'm finding very often, basically in all this table where I'm talking right now, because
mm,
like in Brazil, for example, the strategy was okay. So there's like a regulation that demands as a mandatory commitment from companies to invest in land or in conservation, in preservation, etc. And they just started this business because they served this regulation actually, this regulation. Sorry. So that's interesting actually that you're taking also Borderlands took this this approach for this. Actually, it makes total sense. This is exactly the same strategy I'm adopting for my own business in the real
mm,
estate. When I can understand and I'm compliant with the regulation and understand how to serve these regulations basically, I can create a business or something that makes profits and all this kind of stuff. So that's really interesting, and I also found very interesting. Actually, this is just a comment. The concept of the feminine scaling based on replication and
Mhm.
adaptation. I think it's very intriguing, and I'm really agree. I do agree on this, but I can't wait actually to see also how it will be implemented, in different regions and
Mhm.
industry for considering actually
Yeah,
these unique characteristics and needs.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So, oh, I'm curious about that too. Um, I know it's right. I mean, if you look at uh, how life organizes, if you look at a cell, for example,
Mhm.
the cell always has a membrane to shield itself, so it's like a community in a way.
Yeah.
It has controlled access
Mhm.
between itself and the rest of the world. So
Yeah.
um, it could even be made the case, and that's what some people are working on, that you can create a legal cell in the form of a cooperative, for example,
Mhm.
that on the inside works in a entirely different economic system than on the outside.
Yeah.
And it has a permeable membrane. Okay, so that's one. And then cells replicate themselves, right? That's what cells do. If they
Yeah.
don't do that, they're not alive. Um, and and then if you look at what, for example, stem cells or embryonic cells do, they're generic cells. They can become anything in a body, and what they become depends on the environment they're in. If they're in the finger environment, they become a part of the finger. If they're in the heart environment, they become a part of the heart, basically, right? So I from I mean, it's always very, very almost dangerous to use in nature analogies and apply them to the rest of life.
Yeah.
But, but I deeply believe that that's a way of thinking about replication and adaptation of um, solutions. And I'm really, really curious. I mean, right now since about a little less than a year, we've been active in Siaya County in Kenya and with motherland. The goal is that at the end of next year, the team is self-sufficient and has spawned the next team.
Wow.
So, so if that's possible, if you can show that, and even with the initial community, right? So first, we have a doubling every 2 years. We can we can really show the energy input in terms of financial capital to get to that point.
Mhm.
And then and then we need some more replications to show that this works across Kenya. And then the next goal is to show that this actually works also elsewhere. So this could be
Uh,
Brazil or Costa Rica or Nepal or I don't
that
know.
could be also the bridge basically between our two projects actually in
Yeah.
this way, because my first focus is going to be Latin America, like Brazil.
Mhm.
Moment. So but I wanted to come back actually later on this because I would need maybe your help, to understand a little bit better how can match the two project. Just wanted to leave the last point actually about
Mhm.
the halogenic civilization,
Yeah.
which is I think it's also like an amazing, a very interesting challenge, which is basically since the Hellenic civilization emphasizes basically freedom, sovereignty, basically.
Mhm.
This part is going to be probably very interesting from the human side, how basically the civilization will be able basically to balance individual freedom in cultivating needs, etc., and
Mhm.
the need of a regulation. that to ensure
Hmm.
basically that practices are responsible and blah 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 blah. This
Mm.
balance, I think, it could be a very, let's say, a big challenge for sure. But at the same time, it's the one that really capture like my curiosity at most.
Hmm. Um, yeah, again, I don't really have a ready-made solution, but I have
Oh,
have a theory, and and that revolves around the question, who are we regulating for? So mm, the the majority, an argument can be made that the majority of the people are inherently more good than bad. They inherently don't want to hurt. They want to have a good life, and they understand that they are part of a bigger body, the community, and that by supporting that, they are supported. They are embedded, they understand that they're in this thing together. This is stronger and more easy to um, get a grip on as an individual if you are embedded in a more local community that is smaller, right? So along the Dunbar scale, 150 to 4,000 people, then it starts breaking down. What we are currently, um, what we need to downregulate the 2 to 3% of dark triads personalities, right? People who are psychopathic, Machiavellists, or and narcissists. Or this usually comes packaged. Um, so what we're currently doing with our regulations is that we are creating regulations that limit everyone, while we should actually only be regulating 3%,
okay.
right? So, so this comes with a lot of trust for the inherent um, uh, goodness of humans, and the understanding that if you're embedded in an ecosystem, you don't harm that ecosystem because then it will harm you back.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, and have a small set of principles that are applied to those who actively break that core principle of trust and mutuality. So, in mm, well, in every everywhere that I'm aware of in the world, hundreds or maybe a couple of thousands years ago, the worst that could happen to you was that you got expelled from your community. So if you behave in a way that you upset many people, enough people that they want to expel you, and it's like a death sentence. And in ancient Greek, Rome, that was still
The witches.
the norm, right?
Yeah.
It's worse than a death sentence. In other cultures, simply killed the people that were like that. Try to heal them. If they didn't succeed, kill them.
Yeah.
Um, so, or you find other protocols to downregulate that that kind of behavior, right? Um, so I think the governance should be something around this, creating a lot of freedom as long as you are acting within a boundary of um, non-dark triad
Yeah, it's like
activities.
not playing by the like you are playing by the rule, and then not really rules, but yeah, no, like you said, it's not attacking like the other freedom, or you're not going too far from the shared values, basically. Of
Mhm. Exactly. But that becomes easier if people are sovereign individually, right?
course.
If I'm dependent on somebody who is an asshole,
Mhm.
a dark triad asshole, then it's hard for me to step up and say anything. But if I'm not dependent, it's a lot easier for me to say, hey, wait a minute, what you're doing here is wrong. And it's a lot easier for others to agree. It's a lot harder. So
Yeah,
the solving of Maslow 1 and 2 with helogenic materials and creating sovereignty is, I believe, key to to activate that almost automatically.
well,
So it's
yeah, no, that's a fundamental step.
and that creates the situation of mutually assured thriving, right? Because everybody knows that this only works if everybody has access to all of the things. And you don't want to be excluded from that.
No,
So you want to contribute to the whole because contributing to the whole is so much better than extracting for yourself.
of course. No, no, very, very interesting. Sorry for all the questions, because
No, don't worry. Don't worry.
I was really into the reading, and I really read it carefully because I wanted to understand more. Like to get on board
Yes,
on
thank you for the questions. It's helpful for me to reflect on those as well.
No, no, no. But I think yeah. I mean, now it's clearer also to me. Like
Hmm.
also the phase, the status that you are right now, because of
Hmm.
course you give the theory right now. You didn't put of course you didn't wasn't able to put in practice anything in this part. So of course
Yeah,
it's a work in progress to learn. Of
exactly. But we have to get out of theory mode, right? So
course.
um, the people in the field of paradigmatic shift have thought and theorized about this long enough.
Yeah.
I think we're at a saturation point. It's important. That work was extremely important. I think it's still important to refine it and continue, but I think we're at a transition point where we can move into action. And and that means that we don't know many of the things yet because we have to explore them, but we can do that from a perspective of really high awareness,
Yeah.
right? I'm not saying high consciousness, but I'm saying high awareness. We can
But,
be very aware of what we're doing here, and then from that perspective, regulate ourselves. And what we have to take care of is that in the governance, we build this in so that we can adapt and regulate in the
yeah.
right direction and not in the wrong direction. So that's a bit tricky, but it's doable. And and so I think we actively allow for that. Well, we don't know, right? Otherwise, we would be sitting here theorizing. But we need to start building homes because there are so many people needing new homes right now. I mean, there's a yet hidden crisis happening. Um, 5 million people just I don't know where in some African country, 5 million people fleeing, biggest refugee single refugee wave ever so far. Um, doesn't reach us yet, right? So haven't heard about it yet, but it will. Um, and those people need homes wherever they land, right? So let's do it.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. Really. No, no, thank you very much. I was really inspired about it, and all these changes, etc., was mostly due to this read. Actually, the changes I
Oh, really?
applied to the app. Really, no, no, really gave me a lot of inspirations, and in particular, like it helped me to make other questions, basically different
Mm,
questions. Focus on really what's the real need instead of the business model, the
mm,
milestones, how to get there, like all these things. Because I also needed to reset a little bit because I've always been into like like economist
mm,
industry and not I never found an NGO. I didn't know it took 3 months here in Spain to open. I need to pass a lot of steps also from the ministry. It's not like a company. You go to the notary, you
yeah,
sign, it's open.
yeah.
The way also I'm approaching the fundraising, it's also a different way because before I was asking money for my company
Hmm.
to for performance to give something in exchange. This time I'm not giving in exchange. Well, I'm giving in exchange, of course, an impact for something that is
Hmm.
actually good for the company, but it's only a reputational because I only know if what's actually is if it's really making difference, like this donation or not. Because the others, they are just, try to comply to this.
Well, but ultimately, um, this will reflect in financial terms as well for those companies. So if you look at are you familiar with the EU taxonomy,
The EU taxonomy.
the European taxonomy
Ah,
on,
yeah, yeah, of course.
yeah. So there is regulation happening right now that makes it more expensive to receive loans from a bank for a company if they are not aligned with the taxonomy. So you could roughly say if you're good in ESG, then you can get cheap money. If you're not good, your money is expensive.
Okay.
Right? So and and this currently is still in the first phases. And
Yeah,
this will be expanded from where it is right now, where it's just looking at social and climate, um, or carbon, but it'll expand into ecosystems and much, much, much more. And it'll also become more precise in measuring. Because right now it's basically self-reported. Right?
yeah,
They say, okay, here's 7,000 pages of material about what we think, and now please do the work.
yeah,
But ultimately, there will be a market emerging and standards emerging around that where you are measured. And and if you now provide uh, the industry with a way of using their ad spend to get access to cheaper money, then that's actually reflected in financial terms for them too.
of course. No, no,
It's a
it's an
little bit
impact.
early, right? It's a little bit early, but that's the ultimate promise you could make. That you're making it easier for them to score high on those scores, right?
Yeah, but in exchange, I'm gathering money in a fast way, basically in a faster way than because I mean if I go through the typical fundraising strategy, corporations and users and final users, etc. To make, my first goal is to preserve 10 million hectares of land, which is
Hmm.
the size of the Iceland, for example, the
Hmm.
Iceland. To do that, on based on what I need, basically, I need around let's say 50 billions on like in dollars, basically,
Hmm.
and I can based on the scaling and the start like from the startup to the basically conquering the media world, etc. Let's say we forecast around let's say between 8 and 10 years. Plus, we will also add, of course, the percentage from the fundraising, the typical fundraising. And as soon as we conquer basically the global media industry, plus a forecasted from fundraising, etc. It will take around let's say 5 or 6 years to reach this island, like this 10 million hectares of land,
Hmm.
which means between 13 and 15 years, we can reach the goal, basically. This is something that, if you compare to WWF, for example, which depends mostly to the users and corporations and sponsorship like that, it took 30 years to
Hmm.
neither go closer to this amount of money,
Hmm.
because we're talking about they never made the 50 billions in terms of money since they open up. So like that's also the power that I want to I mean, that's the exchange as well, that I know that giving them I don't know, like visibility in my website as a main sponsors, visibility in the reward them because of their ad spend. It looks like they do it for with a purpose. The reality is their agency just moving this bunch of money, this bulk of money to another network. So honestly, there's no real effort from their side. But of course, they will exchange in terms of reputations, etc. So of course, this is
Hmm.
gonna be my, let's say, the key value that I'm exchanging with them.
Hmm.
You give me this money, and you don't bother me the way that how I use the money. At the same time, there's a like this let's say this part where of course I'm exchanging for something that they just want to show to the final user, to the consumer, but at the same time I'm gathering the money that I need actually to comply with my vision on that, and which is
Hmm.
for me the first step, because if
Hmm.
it's in 15 years I can already achieve this, of course I need to plan, of course, many more years at the same time, adding like you said, like localizing also the very activities of this land.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Hmm. That's so two things come to mind here immediately. One is the measurement of the impact is a huge issue that um, a friend of mine is actually working on solving. So he is um, turning proven impact, binding proven impact into NFTs, so that you can buy these NFTs in the market.
That's exactly the same.
And and so I can connect you when you're ready. I'll send you a link right now.
Really.
Um, and so that's one. Ah, the other is I'll send it to you later. When I've,
Yeah, sure, sure. But because this is a totally like a unique way. It's traceable. It's transparent. It's unique because
Mhm.
from one another things that you probably know better. If you plant a tree, is probably the same provider that will sell this tree 4 or 5 times to you or to other companies. So
Yeah, that's why it has to be non-fungible, right? So, but you need some third party to some trusted third party to do the due diligence on the impact that has been created. And
so
that's
of course,
that's what he's doing. So he's building that service provider. Loompact it's called. I'll send you a link
yeah,
later.
sure. Please, the contact,
And
absolutely.
and the other one is that I like very much about your pivots to um, being a non-profit landowner
Hmm.
with the NGO. There are foundations that do that, and then they make the land accessible for people for long periods. So you get access to the land for 100 years, but so you can actually build something,
Exactly,
create value on top of it, but without exploitation incentives. Right?
exactly.
And so that's very powerful, and it solves an issue that um, we chose to ignore with Miracle, which is you could only build a house if you have land,
Of course.
right? Very trivial, but very true. And and so there's going to be a crunch at one point where people owning a lot of land will find themselves in conflict with people needing land.
Yeah.
Just think Bill Gates, for example. And and that might become a point where regulation changes drastically, and they will suddenly find themselves without ownership over that land anymore. Um, and solving that by providing the land to the people who actually need it in a form of custodianship,
It is.
where they take care of the land and somehow, and I think that's a crucial element in this, benefit in the value creation of their presence on the land, right? A house somewhere is worth as much as the community around it is alive. The community is dead, the house is worth nothing. The community is thriving, the house is worth a lot. So, so that's adding that. You can speak with Jory Torfs, and I can also send you a conversation I've had with him around that, where he basically says ownership of a house over time should move from the person who built it and therefore owns it to the people using it and caring for it. And then you could move one step further and you could say, well, why own it in the first place? You can own itself.
Mhm.
That could also be on top of that, right? So that's just a wild um some wild directions that are too hypothetical before you even have the first piece of land. But I think I'm just putting that out of there as an option because it's imaginable that you could put houses on top of land that own themselves.
No, but that's
And
that's why I wasn't I was actually interested. Maybe like Motherlands could be one of the projects that can be done in the lands that we buy.
Mhm,
But at the same time, that's the positive thing. I mean, we always agree with landowners that
mhm,
we will share everything from this land. We won't acquire the land just because to make a profit or to destroy the land, etc. It's just to leave it to them and
mhm,
help them to build something. It could be a house, it could be a farm, it could be whatever. And actually, with the non fungible tokens, you are co-owner, but at the same time, you can also get the benefits from the activities that you promote in your land, or the
mhm,
community is promoting in their land. Like you said, like if the community is thriving, the land or the house value a lot. If it's dead, of course, there's nothing to do. So maybe right there, it's more like restart, like preserve the biodiversity, connect the biodiversity, because most of the time, the if you plant trees and there's no connection between an ecosystem and a tree and a forest, the trees will fall down. They're just gonna die, and
yeah,
it's gonna be useful. So that's why the land for me it's becoming increasingly fundamental in
mhm,
this, which opens many doors because I wanna like this is also my I don't know, like a loyalty program for my employees. As one
mhm,
day I'm gonna own an island and
mhm,
everybody can live there. They will be co-owner of the island
mhm,
as well. In terms of instead of giving shares of my company, I will give them
mhm,
plants. That's a retention also, and that's also how I will probably want to test in the next future if this community actually can really survive and thrive and grow without thinking the money because in this
Mhm.
island, my wish is to have a project like Motherlands, a project like like
Mhm.
Observerland, and all these things that
Mhm.
can really rebuild a community that can really auto-sustain and thrive actually for the needs of the community. That's it. That's also the test I wish I could do. But that's for example a retention program that I would give to my employees in the first place.
I can, I will connect you with a friend who has 300 hectares in Northern California, um, and is trying to develop something like that there. Um, so um, he's got all um, the construction codes, the regulations, all is covered. What he's last time we spoke was trying to figure out was the funding model for people to be able to live there.
Oh,
Yeah, so exactly in that direction, and things like governance, etc. So it could be interesting to have that chat. Um, maybe next time we just have to chat, the three of us. I'll try and organize it.
I'm super available and now really again everything comes up thanks to your reading, thanks to our conversations. So I hope that the next time we'll meet, we will have a this talk. I can bring you also new some other good news from this
Yeah,
part.
I'm sure you will. At the speed you move. Um, let's try and log in something.
Mhm.
Um, uh, so okay, there's this holiday stuff coming up.
Yeah,
Um, how does the um Monday the 8th work for you?
Monday,
Yeah,
18 next week.
no, no, 8th of January.
Okay, 8th of January. 8th of January, actually pretty good. Perfect.
Yeah, should we do around the same time?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So um,
Perfect.
uh,
Can you
so
also share the recording after
yes, I will.
I receive it?
And I'm gonna send that to David as well as we speak. Um, okay.
And also maybe if you can if you come up with some ideas about like this kind of integrations between because I hope that now it's like to me it's very clear. Now it's I'm building an NGO that is investing in conservation. That's sum up. So also, if you have like any ideas or input or anything that it could be interesting, also how to match the the two, three, four, 11 projects that we have that you run. It would be also good for me because I wanna also to give even like a more a global vision about what conservation means in reality and
Mhm.
like it's not only because I don't want to stick to the carbon credits. I don't want to stick on planting trees. I don't want to stick on like this kind of things. I wanted to make. I want to to build this kind of future for myself, for my employees, for everything, and I want also to complement more like
Mhm.
the this storytelling basically.
So what we can for sure also do is we can bring in other people from time to time. Like
Yeah,
next
exactly.
time we'll bring in David, but then we can bring in, for example, Sebastian Huisman,
Mhm.
a good friend of mine. He is um, well, one of the things he's doing is he's working with King Charles on creating, moving 8,000 hectares at the moment from traditional industrial agriculture to regenerative agriculture, because he is the guy in Europe to do that. He's done it with thousands of hectares before, and so he really knows how to do that. And it's not only a question of of working with the land, but it's also a question of working with the people. It's a fully integrated cultural project, and
Yeah.
so he can speak to that a lot.
Yeah, because this is actually answering the questions that you made. How do you measure the impact? Because
Mm,
for me, that's how I want to measure the impact. Because the possibilities are vast, and
mm,
it can be really like because today I'm having just the idea right now, but in terms of let's say if I'm gonna buy a land today, I only know how to make I don't know. Let's promote ecotourism. Let's build something for ecotourism. That's it. I know that there's a world behind that. Like for example, like a motherlands that if they own they have a land to use, etc. I'm sure that there's gonna be another kind of actions that they can be implemented. So I don't wanna let's say be assertive. I don't want to be too short in my explanation because I wanted to measure. I wanted to create a real impact, and that's really what like my motives right now. Now I'm trying, to just select and resume my ideas and my moment in this, in my energies. But the reality is like I'm looking to find, like I know that the buying lands and have a shared land with the local people right there. It's the right first step to do. Now I need to enrich with exactly what could be the real potential for the impact
mhm.
and
Yeah.
also how to work like for example if one day I'm going to talk to Coca-Cola, they're going to say okay, so this is the land that we're going to buy and this is the project we want to implement or whatever else. So I
Mhm.
wanted to be able to also to drive the money also towards the project that makes even more sense instead of I know I just want to plant some trees into this land.
Um, I'm going to send you a blog post that's of the Motherland blog that basically outlines something we call the gross community product.
Hmm.
And it's basically measures a holistic perspective of the community in um, what defines a good life for them.
Yeah.
And then um, based on that, then helps create a measuring system. We aren't there yet, right? But this could be a basis. Just looking for it right now. This could be a basis for activity, for actually measuring proper impact.
Yeah. Amazing.
Um, yeah, we'll send it as soon as I find it.
No, don't worry. No, no, not now. Take your time. But no, but it will be very interesting because now my challenge is this one. Like I know how to ensure the investment because of the NFT, because of the blockchain technology that I'm gonna apply. I have a model, but is I'm missing what I'm gonna to measure. Like what's the impact?
Sorry, I missed
Thanks
that
again
question because
for the help.
I missed that question because I was
I got the link. No, no,
looking
I'm
for the
just
link.
saying because now everything is getting clearer in my mind.
Yeah.
The only thing that is not clear yet, because I need some professionals that really can help me in this, is actually what's the impact and how to measure this impact. Because
Mhm,
the
mhm,
traceability and transparency and the unique of what I'm selling basically is already done. It's already clear. There's no really too much
mhm.
question about it. But of course, again, I want to be able to drive the money also to the right causes. That is
Mhm.
not only limited to planting trees, which is for
Yeah.
me something very,
But
yeah.
let's explore that as part of the next conversation, because I can feel my focus dropping.
No, don't worry,
Um,
don't worry.
I need to
So,
take a break. Um, but that's exactly what I just sent you, that link for the gross community product, and that gives you a way to measure between two holistically measured points. And that is very similar to um, measuring the path between your current state of the donut and the future state of the donut that you aspire to.
yeah,
Just that the whole thing is developed by the community itself and can be highly adaptive to whatever the community wants. But you can still measure progress towards it. Right? Even though it's relative to the community, you can measure the progress on the path. And that's really helpful in showing impact.
amazing.
Let's explore that next time, man.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Thank you very much, Thomas.
Hey,
Always
thank you.
great to see you.
Fun. Thank you.
Yeah, a lot. And sorry for again for the thousand questions, but
No worry. That's
I felt a little
super
bit stuck.
helpful. Super helpful.
Well,
Yeah.
well, kisses to the family, and yeah, let's talk. Yeah, maybe
In
I'm gonna
January.
text for the New Year's Eve or Christmas just to say hi,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then we talk to the on the 8th.
Cool. See you soon, man.
Ciao.
Good evening. Ciao.